As a career fulfillment coach, so what are some most like common problem statements where actually they result in kind of coaching around fulfillment?
Yeah. So people usually come to me when they're stuck.
Okay.
So I find that I tend to work with people who have a significant amount of their career under their belt already, so maybe 10, 15 years, and they have been, to use that word again, successful up until that point. And by successful, I mean they have set out with a plan for their career, they've got jobs that they wanted to, they've had promotions, they've achieved what they set out to do. But for some reason, the strategies that they used in the past to get to where they were aren't working anymore. Either because they don't know what they want next, that's quite common. People are like, I don't want to be doing what I'm doing currently, but I don't know what to do, so I can't make a change.
Okay.
Or they have had something significant happen in their life and they just want to reevaluate what career success means to them. So that might be starting a family or having a bereavement or even their family growing up. You know, I'm working with one client at the moment who was very heavily involved with the kind of caring responsibilities, but now that their children are older and they're still maybe 10, 15 years away from retirement, they're thinking, well, hang on, this is my time, you know, what do I do? So that's the kind of common thread with people, that they're usually very active. They've taken a very active role in their career to date. They've done lots of things, but they're feeling stuck and they're wanting to try something a bit different because everything else that has worked for them in the past hasn't worked anymore. And really what they're looking for is a space to think without judgment, without being told what to do, and allow the time and the space to reflect on what's going on and make a new plan and move forward with it. So although I talk about being a career fulfillment coach, that's kind of the outcome of what happens for people. I should really call myself a career unstuck coach, because people come to me when they're not quite sure what they want next from their career, but they know that they want some outside help.
Yeah, that should be the title, Get Unstuck.
Get Unstuck.
Do you see any kind of common trends as to why people get stuck? Is it because it's just supernatural, so at some point those strategies that, you know, worked for you just stop working, and that's like a thing for everyone, so what's working for me today is not going to work for me, you know, 5 months down the line? Or are there any other kind of more common reasons why people might be stuck?
I think certainly for people who come to me privately, toxic environments, bad managers, unsupportive companies are a real reason why people get stuck, because they lose their confidence. They're not in an environment where they're valued. They're working really, really hard but not getting anywhere. That conversation we had earlier about, you know, how do I convince my manager that I've got too much work on my plate and they need them to take it on. If you're not supported in that environment, it can be really damaging for you. And if you don't know what you're going to do next, that's where that stuck feeling comes from. I'm in a job that I really dislike. I don't know how I can get out of here. Help, you know, I need some help. I think also what I mentioned before about people's lives changing, we change as individuals, and so where perhaps you had a very clear idea about what you wanted before and you know how to go after it, if suddenly you don't know what you want, that can be really stifling because you don't know how to take an action. Like if I don't, and particularly the way that we think about careers, we talk about having a career plan, the idea being that you have a goal for something you want to achieve in the future, you work out what the steps are that you need to get to there, and then you run with the plan, you take the first step and then the next step, and eventually you get to where you're going. But that system doesn't work if you don't know where you want to go. And we don't equip people to kind of figure out on the way what they want. And a lot of the work I do with people is saying, let's figure out what the goal is, but the goals can often be quite broad. It can be, I want to feel good at work, I want to have better boundaries, I want to have enough time.
At a very top
level.
Yeah.
And then let's figure out what you could do that's going to fit that criteria, rather than going, I want to be XYZ job position, how do I get there? And that allows people to open up much more. It's about thinking about what they want for their whole life, not just from their job. And that's where it gets to that kind of career fulfillment, because rather than chasing one particular job position that you think is going to fix all your problems, you're actually addressing what the problems are. You're addressing what's not quite right and trying to find a job that fits that solves those problems, rather than trying to shoehorn your, you know, what's going to work for you into a job that may or may not fit. One of the biggest pushbacks I get from people, I say I'm a career coach, and they go, oh, I don't need any career development because I don't want a promotion. And I'm like, oh,
interesting.
But actually career development is about so much more than that. You don't need to have a promotion. Career development could be managing a difficult boss so you feel less stressed. It could be getting your work done on time so that you can go home and live your life. Like, career development doesn't mean that you have to have
It's not about promotion.
No, and it doesn't mean you have to have a career, which is a loaded word. It just means feeling good at work. Development is about getting better, and you could get better at a difficult relationship you have with someone. You could get better at feeling less stressed. There are so many things that come under that, and I find definitions of words probably one of the hardest things to deal with people, because they're all so loaded with expectations, and your version of that word will be different to mine. So if I asked you what success is, it's going to be very different to what I think success is. And so you can't share those terms with people.
Have you ever had someone come where they said, I need to change careers. I'm no longer happy in my career. I need to change. I need to do something completely different. And maybe you had to bring them a little bit back, kind of reel them back in to say, okay, you don't have to change your career. You're just in the wrong job. So like, or the wrong company, or the wrong role. And what you actually need is kind of stay within the same career path, but you need to maybe think about how do you kind of wiggle around in there, rather than kind of cut all ties and just jump to, I don't know, become a ballet dancer.
Again, I think as a coach, it's not my job to tell people what to do or to limit them or to over-encourage them. It's to hold a space for them to think about those things.
So you facilitate the kind of thinking.
Yeah, so I'm never going to say to someone, oh, do you think you need to change careers to get that? What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them questions to think, so that, and I might challenge their ideas if they want to be challenged, and that might be the outcome of it. You know, you think you have to do one thing, but actually it could look like something else. But I would never come in with a preconceived idea of, or a judgment that someone is doing something and they should be doing something else, because ultimately I don't know what feels best for them. They need to make the decision themselves. They know what feels good for them. I'm just there to support them, encourage them, challenge them, reflect back what I see in them, and for them to work out what's right for them.
Yeah. How do you know when it is time to let go of your dream? You've poured years and years and years into a particular career, role, or whatever we might want to call it, like the entirety. You have tried maybe many different avenues to kind of stick your nose and put your foot into multiple doors. You push those doors, and that's all you've ever wanted to do. That's what you've poured in your finances in. That's what you've poured in your life into. That's what you have always wanted to do. That one thing is the thing that you think about when you wake up, and it's the thing that you think about when you go to sleep. And if that's not working, how do you know it is time to let go of that?
I think the first thing is to realize there is no like right or wrong decision around it. I think one of the things we think about a lot is about making the right choice. Whether that's, you know, which role to go for, whether you take a job or not take a job, all of these kind of things. And the way we talk about it is almost as if there is this magic instruction book somewhere that has the answer in it, and we are just doing everything we can. We're asking advice from lots of different people to try and uncover this magic instruction book that tells us exactly what the right thing to do is. And that doesn't exist. And I think that's the first step, is knowing that there isn't this right choice to be made. It's about making the best choice with the information you have right now. And this is something I'm talking about with, actually, I've got a client at the moment who's like really going after a goal, but it's not happening for them. So they're trying to think about how do they stay engaged with that process when it's been really demoralising. I'm going through it personally, so I'm wanting to expand my trustee and non-exec director portfolio. I'm currently chair of trustees for a charity, but I would love to have a NED position. And I'm getting rejections left, right and centre for that. And that's really tough, because I'm thinking, okay, well, at what point am I maybe not cut out for doing this?
What's the turning point of actually saying enough is enough?
How long do I try for? You know, and for me, I'm very early on in that. So I'm like, I haven't been rejected enough yet for me to consider this. But I know there will come a point in time where I've had that many rejections where I think, well, maybe, you know, maybe I need to work on myself a bit more, but then I've worked on myself. And then if I'm not getting it, you know, is there a point? And it's really tough, because, like I say, there isn't that right answer. And it's really just about weighing up what is best for you. you know, and what is the better choice? To continue to do something that you might not be successful in, or to put your energy into something else, which feels good and which feels best. And it's hard, and there is no right answer. So you almost just have to pick a way to do it and make the best of it.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's asking yourself, does continuing to go after this goal make me feel better or worse than not continuing? Like, will the potential regret of not trying that little bit more,
Yeah, it's weighing up the regret
feel
versus...
worse than continuing to do something that isn't actually bringing me the joy that I wanted it to? And I would also move away from that binary and say, is there another way that I can have whatever that is that I want to go out in my career in some way, shape or form? And maybe to go back to basics and say, what is it about this thing that I love, that I really, really want? And what is the alternative? How else can I have that in my life in some way?
Yeah.
And see if there's a way that sort of, if you're not having the success with that definition, can you redefine it so that you can have elements of what it is about that job or that career that you can have in a different way, and move away from the binary of having it, not having it, and saying, well, what's a different way of having this?
Because when I changed my careers, I had no idea I might enjoy anything else. I think I was so fixated on, this is the only thing I love, this is the only thing I can do. So I was very fixated on the fact that I even can't do anything because I'm not capable of doing anything else. But I also was convinced that this is the only thing that I'm ever going to enjoy doing. Only to discover that actually there are so many other things that I absolutely love, but I've never been exposed to them. Sometimes it feels like you have to grieve. There needs to be a period of grief, of letting go of something that you thought, you know, what you said, letting go of what you thought success looks like, because we all have a bit of a kind of a picture built in our minds that this is what's going to happen in my life, this is what my life is going to look like when I'm, you know, at this point, when I'm this old, when I'm in this and this position, and then suddenly you arrive there and you realize it looks nothing like that. And then I think a lot of people are really afraid because they think that once that grief ends, there's nothing, because that was the only thing. There's nothing else in life they enjoy or will ever enjoy as much. And I think this is where I think I have an opinion that you just don't know yet what else you might enjoy.
And I think also remembering that you're far more capable than you might realise. And because if I look back at like 5-year chunks of my career, what I was like at the start of those 5 years and what I was like at the end of those 5 years is completely different, because I've learned so much more, I've done so many more things, which excites me, because what's the me of 5 years time going to look like? You know, she'll have 5 years more experience than the me of now, and things.
Well, it's going to be a book, Get Unstuck.
So I think it's just remembering, and like now that I have several years of career under my belt, I can see how much things have changed, and I find that really satisfying and helpful to know that will change. And it's why I've changed my approach to my career development. I used to be of that opinion, you have a goal, you make a plan, you work towards the goal. Now I have a methodology, which is, does it meet my needs? Am I excited by it? Am I just going to have a go at it? You know, and I'm much more experimental, and I've got some parameters that things need to meet. I have income targets for myself, like, and I don't mean targets in like a salesy way, just as in this is the budget I need every month to live my life. But on top of that, I'm like, well, let's try something. Like you say, you never know what you're good at until you've tried things. I'm happy for things to not work out and say, okay, well, that was just an experiment. This experiment went slightly awry. Let's try a different experiment. And to not berate myself and not be down on myself if things don't work out the way that I want them to. I just use that as information. And I think, you know, if you're going after something, a rejection can feel really tough, but it should encourage you to do more. If you were disappointed that you didn't get a role, that tells you that you wanted the role.
That you wanted it.
Yeah. If you're not disappointed from a rejection, you're like, oh well, never mind. Well, you probably weren't that invested, which is also good information to have. But that kind of really stinging, gut-wrenching disappointment is actually a cue that you wanted the thing you were going after. And if you can use that as a drive to keep going for it, then that can be really motivating.
What would you say is kind of maybe one of the main reasons why people don't succeed turning their careers around or changing careers.
I think the thing that stops people being successful, however we want to define that,
Yeah.
is giving things a go, is trying things, is making a change. I think I see a lot of people who complain about their job but do absolutely nothing to make any kind of change, whether that's trying to, move to another organisation or to make change within the job that they're already in, saying no to a colleague that's badly behaved, or putting boundaries in, or doing something different. They just have a whinge about how bad it is, and they sort of enjoy that negative energy. They enjoy the vent, but they don't actually try to make any change, and they're just like, well, that's how it is. I think for me, if you are willing to make a change, to try something different, to reflect on what might be going on, to see what role you're playing in your dissatisfaction, even if it's to go, hang on, this company's never going to get any better, I have to leave. If you don't leave, you are playing a part in you not feeling good at work because you haven't managed to find the ability to leave. With my clients, I'm always mindful of what is the context in which they're working and what can the individual do. So say you have a toxic manager, there is only so much you can do to make that situation better because the manager is toxic. So you can do everything within your control to try and make that situation better, but if they're going to be rude to you, if they're going to be discriminatory based on some characteristic you have, that's not okay, and you're never going to feel great in that situation because they're bringing that. So I'm very mindful with people that I don't just say, hey, here's just 5 steps to finding career fulfillment, and ignoring the fact that there are a lot of problematic things that go on in the world of work through discrimination, poor pay, poor working conditions. So it's about finding that balance and working out what is it within my control, what can I affect and change, and working on those things.
So there's a difference, I suppose, when you decide to make a change and you decide to set something up yourself. So almost like you need to convince yourself that you can do this and then just go for it and kind of give it a go. When you're stepping into, or you want to step into a role working for someone, you then have to not only convince yourself that you should go for it, but you also have to convince other people. And there are a couple of things that recently caught my attention, and as I understand, they're slightly changing and shifting, and maybe they're getting better, maybe not, but they're around kind of this whole credentialism situation, which was very, very relevant to me, because one of the first things that people look for, even now when you submit a CV, like it's no longer even people sifting through CVs, it's just like machines going through them, is whether you have the credentials to show, to indicate to whoever the hiring manager is, that you are kind of worthy of this position. And then the second thing is something that used to be kind of really frowned upon, which was kind of job hopping. So if you see someone who on their CV has, a new job every year and a half or so, you would automatically assume there's no loyalty, something's definitely wrong, they might have been let go, they can't hold a job.
Yeah, I think what underpins both of those is that things change. And so that second idea of like job hopping's a bad thing. So when I first entered the workforce, like when my career began, I've been working like since I was 16, but when I had my first, what I call my proper job after university, that was 2004. I was doing order confirmations to suppliers using a fax machine. And the expectation that I had was that, you had to be in a job for a substantial amount of time. If you left a job after a year, that wasn't going to look good on your CV. You worked your way up an organisation, so you had to earn your spot. You should have one job, it should be in the same sector, so moving sectors was seen as a bit kind of like odd to change that. So that was like the culture that I brought to the world of work. But you think about where we are in 2024, what is different, even just in my time, 20 years in the workforce. So when I joined the workforce, Facebook didn't exist, Twitter didn't exist, we didn't have Uber or any sort of gig economy type companies. Companies didn't have a social media department, so the world has changed. And therefore the jobs that people do are also different, and everything is so much more fast paced now. The rate of change, the rate of technology change, how everything is going. So it kind of makes sense that people would stay in jobs for less amount of time, because everything is just at this hyped up pace. But I think what both of those things highlight is the importance of continuing development, which is what I talk about a lot as a coach, is paying attention to the changes in the world that are going on. And like you talked about, you know, how your CVs are read they read by a person or are they read by a machine? I don't know. Like, as a career coach, I'm helping people to figure out what it is that they want to do, and I will defer to other experts for them to how to actually, you know, go through that application process, because I can't keep up to speed with everything that's going on. But what I would say to people is, whether you are going through some kind of computerized AI system that's screening your CV or whatever, it's still really important for you to think about what your career story is, what's your narrative, and how you want to present yourself. Because at some point, you're going to get in front of a person, and they're going to want to hear about what you bring and what you offer. And I think those things are linked then, because if you do have a short period of time where you're not working or you've changed jobs a lot, that isn't necessarily a positive or a negative thing. We have this idea in society that, you know, if you're in a job for a year, it says all these things. But if you're in a job for a year, it could be because you were doing maternity cover. It could be because that was the length of the project and you've moved on to something else. It doesn't have to have a negative connotation. I think anything in your CV, it's up to you to define it and to tell the story.
narrative around it.
And I always say to my clients, you never lie about what you've done, but you think about the story you're telling. Do you need to tell everybody an entire history of everything you've ever done? Would you give them the edited highlights?
Yeah.
It's a bit like a, what do you call an advert for a movie? A trailer for a film.
Preview.
A preview, yeah. It's giving you a little snippet of information. It's giving you a flavour of what it is without having to say every single thing in chronological order in complete detail. And so I think with both of those things, it's about really recognising how the world is changing, how the world of work is changing, what's important, what's not.
Yeah.
And paying attention to that. I mean, there's a huge debate going on at the moment about flexible working. Is the office best? Is home working best? How does that work? You know, there's a real backlash from companies who are like, no, you've got to be back in the office now. But if you take a neutral stance on that, we have just got the technology now to think about the world of work slightly differently. And rather than thinking of things in these binary terms, good and bad, if we can think about it as it's just evolving and changing, I think you're going to be most successful if you are open to that change, if you're paying attention to it, and you try and make the best of whatever the norm is.
Yeah. So if someone is trying to move into a new field because that's what they have determined they want to do, would you still recommend they pursue some form of credentials to back them up, or would you just say, nah, it doesn't matter that much anymore?
That is such a sector specific conversation, so I would never answer that for somebody. I would say to them, go and investigate the sector you're getting into and what is expected, because there are going to be some sectors where that is so important and that's how things are judged. You know, I'm thinking like
so like medicine,
law and medicine, you know, there are very strict like ways and not even strict, defined routes into those careers, which actually is really helpful, because you want to be that thing, well, here are all of the things that you need to do. It might be really tough, it might be very hard, but you know what you're going to do. So I would say if someone is thinking, do I need credentials or not, they really need to speak to somebody in the industry and find out who are the decision makers in that space and see what their thoughts are on it and whether or not it's relevant, because for some industries it's going to be super important for a whole heap of reasons, regulatory reasons, you know, making sure they've got the right knowledge. In other areas it might not be so important. In the world of coaching, it's really interesting because anyone can call themselves a coach. There is not a definition of coaching. I have a coaching qualification. I'm working towards being accredited as a coach, because for me that's really important. It says here are the standards I'm working towards. I haven't just decided I want to be a coach and I'm going to have a chat with you can give me some money. There is, you know, learning behind it. There is a qualification behind it, but there isn't an industry standard about what people need to have. So you can have someone who can say, oh well, I've got a bit of knowledge, I'm going to call myself a coach and I'm going to charge thousands of pounds to coach people, and they have nothing to back that up. They have no qualification, they have no ethics standards that they work towards, they have no supervision, which can be really, you know, quite
shady.
Yeah. Because when you're coaching someone, I think people think it's just, you know, offering up your opinion, but it's not. You know, my definition of coaching is non-judgmental. I don't tell people what to do. It's non-directive. But also I make sure I coach within the boundaries of my competency. So I don't start giving advice about whether or not you should be credentialed or not, because that's not my area of expertise. Equally, coaching, particularly in the career space, can touch on lots of difficult emotional things for people if they've had a toxic boss or a toxic environment. And actually some people might need coaching, might need counselling. And again, I'm not a counsellor, so if someone is in a really bad emotional space during a coaching session, I have a responsibility to make sure that they get that help and support. I also have a responsibility as an individual to make sure that I'm looking after myself and that I'm continuing to grow and develop. So I have coaching supervision so that my well-being is taken into account and my practice is reflected on and shared upon, because otherwise it's just me and the client and I could be doing anything. So in the world of coaching, I think it's really important to have some form of credentialing, accreditation, something to back you up. But I don't think that's necessary, and I think sometimes it can be, not for coaching, but in lots of sectors, it can be a real barrier to people getting in. When jobs applications say must have a degree. Well, you can have, and it's like we can have a degree in anything. But it's like, well, what is it about a degree that someone needs? What if someone's had 20 years experience in the workplace? Is that not as valid?
Is that not enough? Yeah. That was my battle to fight, because I had no other degree, and I'm considering one maybe now, but I'm thinking, what's the point really? Is there a point anymore? Aside from the fact that I would love to maybe learn, but obviously when you're thinking about spending a lot of years and then money, is it really necessary, or can I just pick up a little course there and there? It's not going to give me the credentials like an MBA or something, as amazing as that. But it's just going to be more for my own personal development needs, where I know I lack knowledge or understanding in certain areas. Once you have found fulfillment, so let's say either you yourself or someone you know or someone you've coached, once people have identified, I now know what brings me fulfillment, does one need to then continually cultivate that fulfillment? Do you need to maintain it? And if so, how do you maintain it? How do you yourself? What's your maybe favorite habits to ensure kind of you're periodically checking in and you're kind of watering that fulfillment in that area?
So I don't think career fulfillment is any one thing. It's not like a state that you get to. It's not like I'm fulfilled and you're there. I think it's about the small things that you do every day that help you, that all add up to feeling really good. So for me, my personal fulfillment comes from doing work that brings me joy, and for me that's something that it's a combination of things I'm good at and things that have a really positive impact in the world. It's about earning enough money that I can, live the life that I want, pay my bills, and have some, fun money as well. And it's also about having a positive impact on the world. The choices that I've made and wanting to help people have more fulfilling careers is because I want to put some positivity into what is a very negative world at times, and I want to feel like I'm making a contribution. So if I can do all of those things, then that's what's going to make me feel good. But I have bad days and I don't always feel good at work. And for me, it's remembering about the small things. So if I'm going to feel good at work, I need to have enough sleep. So if I have a late night and then I try and work the next day, that's going to be a real struggle for me. So that's important. Also, a big value for me is collaboration, and I really love working with other people and achieving more than we could have done on our own. So watch out for me is if I have to work with people that I don't get along with or who don't want to collaborate, I know I'm going to find that really challenging. And so I have to find a way to be okay with that, either by building a better relationship with them or acknowledging that they don't want to collaborate, so therefore I need to invest less of myself with them, because otherwise I'm just going to be frustrated. So it's having that continual awareness. And I think it's also being prepared to continually reflect on what I'm enjoying, what I'm not enjoying, and being prepared to make a change if things aren't working. So my portfolio is 3 jobs at the moment, but that might change in the future. I might decide that actually I can make more money with my coaching, so I might drop down a few days with my charity, or I might want to do more with the singing side of things, so I find a way to make that change. It's recognising that I will change as an individual, and therefore what my needs are will change. And so it is in the everyday. It's every morning when I get up going, okay, what do I need today to feel good? What do I need to let go of? Which annoying colleague do I just need to ignore and not be cross about?
Hopefully they're not listening.
I don't think they will be. Which things do I need to do? Like making sure I drink enough water, making sure I actually make time for lunch, going outside and getting some fresh air. And then just giving myself time every week to really look at what I'm doing and asking the question, is this the kind of week that I want to be having? Have I got enough time in there for rest? Have I got enough of what brings me joy? If not, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
So it's a continual process. Fulfillment is never this place that you arrive at.
Yeah.
It's how you feel in the small, the everyday, and it's also recognizing that you won't feel great every day,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And it's asking yourself, did I just have a bad day today? It's a one-off. Or is this a pattern of behaviour that I need to address because it's not going away, and if I don't change something, then I'm not going to feel good all the time.
Is there a book or a resource or some form of something that you'd recommend for people who are perhaps looking to understand a little bit more about themselves and what could bring them fulfillment? So maybe that kind of one step that they could take. If they could take one step today, is there something that helped you?
So I'm going to plug my newsletter, The Inbox Coach, because
Please do.
This is what this is for. So I write a newsletter called The Inbox Coach, and I describe it as a little bit of coaching straight to your inbox every Monday morning. And what I do is I take a different topic every month.
Yeah.
So this last month I've been talking about career fulfillment, but I also talk about boundaries, taking a break, all sorts of career topics, and I pose some reflection questions to help people to reflect on that topic. And then I also give them some prompts for actions that they can take, because you don't develop in your career unless you take an action. So it's really important that people actually think about a small step that they can take. And the idea is that most people don't have enough time for their career development. It's that thing that goes to the bottom of the to-do list. You think, if I don't have a half day to do something, I couldn't possibly do anything, so I'll do nothing. But actually I want people to think every week about their career development. So it's called The Inbox Coach. You can sign up on my website, and it brings me so much joy to write, because I get to reflect on these career development topics and think about my own practice and what I'm doing, and I know that they have a really positive impact on other people. I know that one person has left a job because of reading my newsletter, because every Monday morning they would get my newsletter which was saying, are you fulfilled, are you fulfilled, and they would go, no, and eventually they realised that they needed to make a change. So that would be my gift to anyone watching.
Amazing. And then if people wanted to keep up with whatever you're doing next, any new things coming out, is your website the best place to go, or are there other places where I can point people towards?
Yeah, my website is a great place to start, and I'm on LinkedIn. I have embraced the whole marketing thing and the networking thing. I've combined the two, and I now love hanging out on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect or follow with me on LinkedIn, you can absolutely do that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. It's been really lovely to speak to you.
Thank you for having me. It's been brilliant.